Go ahead.
Hello, I'm John Grossman, a volunteer with the Forest History Association of Wisconsin, and I'm happy to welcome you to tonight's webinar offering of Monster Fire at Minong. Our speaker tonight is author Bill Matthias. Bill was born in Columbus, Wisconsin, grew up in Madison, and now lives on Bond Lake in Wascott. He began his studies at the University of Wisconsin as a pre-forestry major, and then rekindled his interest in the pine, oak, and lake region of Northwest Wisconsin when he became a superintendent of the Northwood School District in 1975. While he was superintendent, Matthias launched the teenage firefighting crews at Northwood High School and battled the 5-mile tower fire of 1977 for 50 hours. Tonight's audience will include Bill Scott and John Delameter. These two men led the wildfire response effort for Wisconsin DNR on this fire. They both retired in 2000 as members of the Forestry Division leadership team. The story being told tonight, while tragic in so many ways, is also a success story, owing to the work done by both mitigate and prepare during the years preceding this fateful April afternoon. Both men will be available to join the question and answer effort at the end of the presentation, Bill with a live mic and John offering his input via his computer keyboard. As I now hand off to our presenter, be aware of two issues for successful participation. First, note questions you have for the presenter and or the two men who led the response on that day, and take time to post them via the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. The appropriate person will respond to them at the end of the session. Second, if new to Zoom and you have challenges navigating the system, pose these questions in the same chat screen, and the facilitator will reach out to you personally during the session. Now, along with you, we look forward to this evening's presentation.
Hello, are you ready for me?
Go ahead, Bill.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Matthias from Wascott, and I thank my two sons, Jeff and Greg. They both are online a lot in their jobs, and I'm at his cabin with his equipment. The 5-mile fire certainly was a big one, and I think it's been the largest at least in 50 years. And what else happened in 1977? This is quite interesting. You probably remember TV's Roots, seen by 130 million people. The minimum wage was $2.30 an hour, and when our kids at school got their checks from the DNR for the hours they put on the fire, they were quite happy about the $2.30 an hour. I worked on this for 3 years and interviewed 135 people. It's dedicated to all the people in the back of the book. Ed Forrester let me go in the archives in the basement of the Cumberland DNR office, and I found the pay slips of everybody that was on the fire. And so it's quite accurate, I believe, all the hours and the thousands of people that fought on this fire. And as some of you have said, it's one of the last, not the last, but one of the last citizen fires where they allow anybody on with a pair of jeans and tennis shoes and a t-shirt, and you hand them a shovel and off you go. Now it's totally different, as you know. It started right here with a fire ring, and John Schultz subsequently was not judged guilty. There was a jury trial, and I tried to get the transcript of the trial, and it was missing at the Shell Lake office of the courts. But it started out in the afternoon, and I know that some of you were right at the beginning of it. That year was really dry. I remember Bond Lake had 65 feet of dry sand before the lake shore started. And this year it was a dry year, but was only about 5 or 6 feet of sand before the lake started. So it was very, very dry. The origin is down there in the bottom with the X. Can everybody hear me all right? Excuse me.
You're good, Bill.
Okay. You see all the lakes up there? with the Togatic River. There was the old sulky plows. As I muted, I've had a cough lately, guys, so excuse me if I cough. I'm trying to mute it when I cough. It's spotted across River Road. A Minong tractor plow was there. The Webster plow arrived. Minong had some fire trucks there too. And this was important. There was no communication between the patrol plane and the tractor plows. Sorry about that. The fire spotted across the road, and it wasn't going to be stopped easily. Jim Ratnikitchen from Minong helped and developed this fire procession on my PowerPoint show. He spent many hours doing this. I thank him very much. Now we're up to the river. You see the plows going up the side. It's now 3:18. The 450 puts a line around the breakout on the right flank. I'm sure many of you listening can remember this. There's a T6 pulling a sulky plow. The winds were 17 to 20. Humidity was, Bill Scott can probably correct this, humidity was right around 25%. I interviewed Bud Erickson. He flew a Beechcraft on the T-34. Bud was very interesting. He was from Cumberland, and his father died right around the time World War II started, and Bud was not allowed to enter the service because he had a farm. But he got his mother to sign him off so he could go in the service. He became a pilot off aircraft carriers in the Second World War. There's Bud. These are the 4 T6s ready to go. This is the Shaw Lake Airport. That's Shaw Lake. You can see the runway down there and the Shaw Lake Park and the beach and the tower, water tower. The fire sounded like a freight train. It's growing in the distance. This is a shot taken from probably about 20 miles away. Jim Miller was showing me the Martini wheel that was developed to show rangers an idea of want to bring in different aspects of equipment and people on a fire. And Jim was a wonderful help to me in this book all the way along. And I say hi to Jim if he's on too. So in the first 2 hours, 18 tractor plows were ordered, 9 rangers, 1 large G7 dozer. The overhead team was assembled in the field. The wardens arrived, the county sheriff's squads were paged, and it exceeded the Martini wheel training by a factor of 3. Everything was coming. And then as I found out later, Madison had their center going. And they were sending units from all over the state to fill in behind units that came on this fire. You see where the 5 Mile Tower is at Lake Nancy and how close it was to burning all the homes around Lake Nancy. They did a wonderful job on the right-hand flank of that fire, on the east side of that fire, to keep that contained. And as you'll see up on the Minong flowage, it's coming. That could have been terrible up there too, because there's many, many cabins on Lake Nancy and the Minong flowage. This is what our high school kids looked at after the fire burned through on Sunday night when John Delameter asked me to try to get some help to mop up. So I called off the school classes for 3 days and we took out our high school students that wanted to go and they did the mop up. This was a fire headquarters. There's a few back cans there and shovels, and there they are right out in the open with tables and maps and radios and sitting in their trucks, sending the troops out. It's the width of the fire is getting close to 2 miles, and there's when across Highway T, it was 3 miles wide. That's Bill Scott on the right, and that's John Delameter in the truck. I can't identify the man with his back to us, but those were the 3 of the big leaders on the fire. The State Historical Society selected a photo taken by one of the wardens when it was crossing Highway T to be the cover of my book. This was one of the roads, the sand roads, and flames were 400 feet high, and no road was going to stop this fire. There's John Delameter, the fire boss. I don't know how many hours he went without sleep, but it had to be a lot, at least 2 or 3 days without any sleep. Many rangers did that. I don't know how they did, but they did. The fire crossed the county line at 6:09 from Washburn to Douglas County. It traveled 7 miles in 4 hours and 50 minutes. 1 mile every 41 minutes. And now it's 3 miles wide. 4,000 acres. Smoke column was up 10,000 feet. And these people saw it from 20 miles away. Maybe you recognize some of these folks on the fire at the fire headquarters, the outdoor fire headquarters. Later on, I think it was maybe Sunday, that the fire headquarters was moved to the Minong Town Hall on Nancy Lake Road. So hour number 5, there was 23 tractor plows, 2 large dozers, 11 rangers, 400 firefighters, hundreds more signing in. They brought the Gordon Prison Camp crew in and the DNR game crew. And as many of you rangers know, and how we found out at the school board meeting later, many know-it-all beer drinkers at the roadblocks. Ralph Mortier doing mapping and sending rangers out. And remember that the airplanes couldn't communicate down, had to be done in other ways. So here we are going into Douglas County, getting close to Highway T. This little lake in the middle is Loon Lake, right on Highway T. That lake had some interest that it split the fire. So here's the stats. 9 days since the last rain. That night, the wind did not slow down. It kept blowing all night. the controversy was that the Rangers had a lot of dozers sitting there to put them in later because we knew we couldn't stop it at T. So there was a controversy, people criticizing that. Why are those dozers sitting there? Once you get them in there. So I'm sure you've heard that before and you've heard it since. And there's always those that can do it better than the officials. Here's getting close to crossing T. This is only about a mile from Crush's Harbor and Viewpoint Lodge. If you'd have put dozers there, they'd have burned up. Even though it looks like a long distance in between the trees, a border between each side of Highway T, it didn't make any difference. It burned all night. It was finally contained about 7 a.m. Sunday. Burned 16 hours. Thousands of people labored all night. Some stories I heard was the crews that were in the beginning part of the fire and had to stay down in the black really got cold that night, and not a lot of water and food either. It was a chilly night, and those that came on the fire during the hot part of the afternoon and were dressed in a t-shirt or a light shirt and just a pair of jeans, they really got cold during the night when they weren't, if they weren't near the flames. So the 4 lakes narrowed the fire: Pearson, Cranberry, Crystal, Loon Lakes. And the 8th Division boss, which was Bill Scott, used them to narrow the fire. Many heroes fought valiantly around the lakes. There's all kinds of stories. The line between Crystal and Cranberry was key to victory. The Loon Lake splits the fire. The line on the east side of Loon cut the fire in half. I'm on Bond Lake there on the northwest side of Bond Lake, so that's about 2 miles from my house. My wife and kids were evacuated. I have a story in my book about a vortex roll that lay down on the ground, and 2 men and a bunch of boys from Spooner ran out safely and did not get burned. It's an amazing story, and they swear it's true. A tornado vortex laid down on the ground, and it left the middle part unburnt, and they ran out. And when they went back, and they dropped all their equipment. When they went back the next day, they proved it was true. It was unburnt, and their tools and their backpacks and their shovels, the grass was unburnt, but everything was burnt on their equipment. So they got out with their lives. And it's amazing that only one person, his name's Mark Smith, lives in Grantsburg now, and was on the Minong Fire Department. He jumped off the back of the Minong truck and sprained his ankle. That I know of, that's the only injury on the entire fire, and there was no deaths. With over somewhere around 2,000 people fighting this fire, and most of them amateurs. So here we are up by the St. Croix River and the Gordon Dam. And here's the footprint of the fire. There's a big map at the Minong Ranger Station that shows this. 13,375 acres in 14 hours. There's Crush's Harbor on IOET. Viewpoint. Came really close to Viewpoint. And the fishing crew, I guess, was down on the river. And there's a home light pump. I had one of those. I bought one of those for my house in the river. And that's where the fire ended on Sunday morning. Here's the damages. $1.3 million total. But there's 121 buildings that were saved inside the burn. And 189 structures not burned within a quarter mile outside the fire line. So by keeping those fire lines, really saved a lot of homes and cabins and resorts. There's a T6 dozer. Big difference from today. 43 miles of fire line were dug in one day, the same as a highway crew building a drivable road from Madison to Janesville, through woods and brush and around swamps and lakes. So they were patrolling a day and night on the roads that the dozers followed up and made for the 4x4s. So a lot of changes. Immediately afterwards, I understand lots of money was put in, and the dozers went to a John Deere 450 and lots of other equipment and common radios and frequencies and air attack equipment, planes from Minnesota and Ontario and all over. Incident command centers and procedures were practiced, and lots of training, safety clothing, and everybody being trained to get in a fire nowadays. The air attack, the seat, single engine, air tractor, Cessna spotter planes. And just a few years ago that they took down all the fire towers because they have, I think the DNR has 13 Cessna 172 or 182s that go up on dry days and run grids from 3,000 feet to spot for fires rather than using the towers. And we have compacts with Minnesota, Michigan, Ontario, and Manitoba. And then, of course, there's a double engine water bombers. And now on TV, we're seeing big, whatever they are, 747s dropping water. Those are the two gentlemen that are crop dusters in the off fire season, and they were at the Solon Springs Airport with that big monster. And the pumpkin tanks to fill them, and the Minnesota airplanes scooping water, and choppers that pull a tank on a strap underneath. Here's our Wascott Fire Department years ago. We're on the corner of Highway T and Apple Lake Road. We were not a fire department at the time of the 5 Mile Fire in 1980. I was one of the members citizens that got the fire department going, got this town board to start a fire department. Chicago Fire Department also was not in existence during the 5 Mile Fire. Here's a example of a incident command center, and now they have incident command vans. And this Saturday we're going to have one of these. Kirby, the ranger from Minong, is running a 5,000 acre mock fire this Saturday, and I think 23 fire departments are being invited. And it's going to be just south of here, about 5 miles down by Nancy Lake Road. This is at the Madison DNR headquarters. Looking at the maps. High wildfire risk. We had the Garriman Road fire a few years back east of Gordon, and we had many homes that looked like this. It burned through a subdivision that was in the pine plantations. It was just terrible. Our Wascott Fire Department one time watched 3 homes burning at once. Couldn't be saved. This home here is going to be gone if there's a fire. No way to save that. This one we might be able to. So everybody needs to help. And that's it on the PowerPoint show. I appreciate everybody's assistance when I wrote this book. And it's been a pleasure to do it. And also to be on this show with the Forest History Association of Wisconsin. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Bill. We had a number of questions come up and I didn't get to them at the right time. So I'm going to just ask right now. Bob Zeal asked if there was any reaction to the comment on the horizontal roll story.
No, I've not received any negative or positive comments about it. Just that it was a fact, and I interviewed the people that were in it. It is quite amazing, I have to admit.
Okay, I'm going to turn on Ed Forster's microphone. He had a question for you, so I'll get to that as I'll ask another question and let you answer it. The question was, were there planned fire breaks on any of the Mosinee forest land?
I don't think then. Later on they did. They made some big breaks. Mosinee lost about 4,000 acres on this, I think.
Bill,
on
this
this
is
fire.
Bill Scott.
Hi, Bill.
There were some breaks, and I don't know if it was Mosinee or the township on some of the east-west roads, like on Little Sand Lake Road.
Oh, really? Okay.
On the north side of the road, they cleared about twice the width of the road and had the dirt piled up, and so there was some attempt, but of course it was way too little.
And then they also cleared along Highway T. You saw that area, but that was too little too.
Yes.
Ed, you can talk now. All you have to do is unmute your microphone.
Well, can you hear me now?
We
Hi,
can
Ed.
hear you now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, Bill, thank you for writing the book to document this great piece of Wisconsin history. And tragic though it may be, it's something we need to keep in mind. So I thank you for the book, and I thank you for this presentation.
Well, thank you. And you helped me get going. You fired me up right at the beginning, talking to you at the Cumberland office.
Bill, it doesn't take anybody to fire you up.
All right, we had another question. Where did the National Guard equipment come from?
Oh boy, maybe Duluth.
No, that came from Hayward. At that time, Hayward was an engineering. Captain Lean was the man in charge of that equipment.
Okay.
And then another one, did the fire spur on the initiative to modernize the tractor plow fleet?
Oh, yes. That really, yes, the fire, this fire and a few others that were right afterwards, Oak Lake and forgot the other one. A lot of money got dumped in to modernize the tractors and to make it safer for the drivers. Back to the National Guard, I talked to a National Guard member one time. He said they brought some of their huge dozers down, but I'm not sure where they worked. The Rangers would know that.
Okay, and then another question had to go, were there a number of fire towers up watching this thing go?
Yes, this got triangulated by the Gordon Tower and the 5 Mile Tower, and I'm not sure if there was a third tower or not.
The 5 Mile Tower lady, when the fire crossed the river, it was coming almost straight at her. And she called and asked if she could leave the tower. which she did because she had to drive about a half a mile towards the fire and then turn either east or west. And she had a home, her and her husband had a home on the opposite side of the fire, and she went and evacuated that home.
Wow.
Another question was, were there other fires in the vicinity on the same day?
Is Jim Miller on? I'm not sure. I don't think so. There was a couple days before this though.
Let me see here.
I would say too that there was fires the night after we had it contained. There's, for some reason, there's always arson fires. And I think we had 7 arson fires set around the perimeter of this fire the next night after we had this fire contained.
Oh, man. I think I remember you saying that. I was sleeping then. You guys are up.
I was trying to sleep.
Jim Miller will be able to speak in just a second. All he has to do is unmute his microphone. Okay.
Is that, there's Jim. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Bill.
Good to see you. How's Stoughton?
It's still here.
Were there any fires that same day?
There were some, yeah, pretty much all over the state. We were having fires that time. I was in Rhinelander at the time when we were able to send a lot of equipment over for this fire, but we had fires. Forest Service, I think, had a couple. Any more, I'm not sure, but there were, and we were getting equipment shipped in from all over. The big thing was the closer equipment that would be sent to you, and then we would have to back it up from further away. So it was a series of steps really to keep our equipment available.
Mm-hmm. One thing I've talked to around town here is I see people that were on this fire and they're now a lot older, and they say that they remember this so well that it was, especially the high school students, it was citizenship in action. I mean, this was a fire burning in our school district, almost all in the Northwood School District. And I let them have 3 days off. The kids that didn't want to go, we ran a study hall in school. I asked the cooks to come in at 5 in the morning and pack a whole bunch of sandwiches and cases of milk. Because back then, you know, we didn't have these small water bottles like we do now, convenient water bottles. And then when they came back looking like coal miners for 3 days, and we were pretty much done with the mop up Thursday, as a reward, I gave them off another day to decorate the gym because it was prom week. So they remember that week as a week without school, but it was certainly important citizenship for the area.
Bill,
Bill Scott knows this, that we got some heat from the citizens and some parents. I had notes on board for all the kids that were on our fire crews, but you always miss a few. And when some of them were out all night, we had some problems, and we had a very contentious school board meeting following the fire that I asked the Rangers to come to try to explain things, and we lived through it. But I don't take back any of my decisions.
Bill, you want to introduce the people, John DeLamater, Bill Scott, Ed Forster, and then what role they played in the fire?
Sure. John Delameter was the fire boss, and Bill Scott was H Division boss all the way on long. And Barry Stanek from Gordon was a line boss on, I can't remember what side, I think the east side. Ed Forrester was a line boss. I think Ed set a record, didn't you, Ed? of being line boss on 3 or 4 lines on the same fire, moving up and up and up? Are you
Yes,
on, Ed?
yeah, I'm here. Yeah, it was on the right side.
You're on the right side?
Yep.
How many lines did you take care of? You kept
The
moving up.
recollection has faded, Bill.
Well, I think
but it
you
was
set a
several.
record.
It was several.
Yes.
I'd have to read your book.
It's a good book to read.
It's still for sale. I make $1 a book from the Historical Society.
Well, Bill, it doesn't look like, oops. I'm sorry, there is another question. There was a pattern of simulations by the DNR in the years before this fire. Were there any simulated fires on this same ground?
Bill Scott, comment.
Bill Scott's gonna have to answer this one.
I don't remember. Every winter from, in the late 60s, we'd go to Tomahawk and go through simulations one area at a time. I don't recall any in this area. It was 45, 50 years ago, you guys, so.
Yeah, there was one that we had done in the simulator that was actually the real fire started 40 acres away from where our simulator started. And it was held to quite a few acres less. Like you said, 50 years ago, there's a lot of slipped away, but I do remember that.
I do remember one that they set up to burn right into Minong from the west, from like Nancy Lake into the Minong village itself. That's the only one I can remember.
I'll comment for you guys. After I retired, same year as Mr. Matthias, Mr. Scott, and Forrester, and Delameter, back in 2000, the Great Lakes Compact sponsored a conference on fire simulation, and I was retired, and they asked me to shop around for somebody to speak. They'd already picked the title of the talk that they wanted somebody to give, and it was institutionalizing fire simulation. That Wisconsin had a history at that point in time of doing that for a long time. Well, and I did try to shop around to find somebody. I couldn't. I talked to Gordon Delameter, or Gordon Lanphier was still around at the time, and I visited to some extent with him, and we talked about the process that he was a champion of, during his tenure as chief. The conclusion we came to is that fire wheel that you talk about, the Martini wheel, was really an institutionalizing of performance standards that people were supposed to commit to. Now, the design was just along a timeline. It wasn't driven by fire behavior but it was driven by how much had you organized by a point in time. And I think that was significant for the program, that the people out there were skilled in looking at what were performance standards. How long has this been going on? And what have you done? And that little wheel helped you look at and consider what you ought to be doing. How were you moving to manage the firefight? So I think that was significant for the program. And so many of the guys that were a part of that fight at the time, were skilled in that arena. And I think that was significant for the program and somewhat the success on this fire.
And if you remember, John Delameter and Bill and the head guys jumped that wheel by 3 times because this thing was growing so fast. I want to say another thing that I remember, that the fire department's chiefs and the trucks did not have the same frequencies as the Rangers either, and the planes didn't either. So that had to be cleaned up in the years afterwards.
That's why the fire department bought me a CB radio.
Yeah,
Some
you had to
might
take-
won- some might wonder why or how we got all this equipment there so fast. And that's after all the simulation and things, I think the areas all put together a book that listed all the equipment and all these school crews and where the fire departments were and where to get the big dozers and that sort of thing. So the dispatcher, when the ranger would order something, she just opened up the book and went down the list and started making phone calls. And so everything was already looked up for them. And so they just had to make the calls and fill the orders.
So did that happen after the 5 Mile Fire or before?
No, it was before, and then, of course, that got modernized even more. And then as more fire departments came in, everything got added into that
Yeah.
book.
In this area, only the Gordon Fire Department and Minong were the only two.
That's correct.
Is John Delameter listening? Is he on? I'd like to hear John's voice. I'd love to talk. Say hi to
Yeah,
John.
Bill. Hi, Bill. I'm right here.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Good job on the fire.
Well,
You're
that was an
retired like the
effort
rest
by-
of us, right?
That was an effort by a lot of people. One of the things I'd like to bring up at this time is Bill Matthias, you alluded to some of the things that happened over a 3-day period. And of course, there were critics, and rightfully so. But one of the things that I remember and am very proud of is the fact that this fire and the way it was fought and the results of the fire not burning so many things ended up being looked at and reviewed by true fire experts throughout the United States and Canada.
Yes. Good job, John. I don't know how you stayed up that long without sleep.
Bill, I got another question here. The question is, did they determine who started the fire?
Yeah, John Scholes. He started a fire to cook some hot dogs. And you saw the picture of the ring of rocks. Of course, it was in a dry field, and jumped in the grass and went up to some jack pines, and there it went. And Bill Scott, you were there first, right?
That's correct.
And why don't you tell about what you saw when you first got there?
I showed up to the driveway into their property there, and he was out there, you could tell he'd been fighting fire and running, and he pointed me down this little 2-rut road in between the jack pines, and I got about halfway down there and here come the fire. So I had to quickly back out and get around and come in a different way. But, between the fire department and volunteers that we had there, they kind of lined up on the road and we stopped the fire. Except for all the spotting that was going over the fire that we couldn't see start on the opposite side of the road.
Oh, boy.
I had several volunteers come out and take their back cans off and put them on the back of my truck and said, boy, I thought that was going to be a tough fire. And I said, it is, it's still going to the river.
Wow.
So, it was, just one of those days that it was going to go.
And we have a couple of comments. First one is from Mike Zahosky. And he says, it's not really a question, but Bill, interesting presentation. Wanted to use the chat feature, but was disabled. Nice to hear from the old timers, Ed, Jim, Bill, Scott, and all the old picks. I started with 17 new foresters at Tomahawk in July of 1977. 3 months after the 5 Mile Fire, we got thrown into training with all this heightened fire activity in the spring of 1977. Martini wheel, old memories. And then one more says, thank you for your dedication to the Wisconsin Fire Program and carrying on history. Jim Bernier and Matt Baylock tuning in live from the Great Lakes Forest Fire Compact meeting in Traverse City, Michigan.
Oh, wow. Mike Blaylock is one of our ranger leaders in the area. I don't know his exact title now, but I know him. Well, thank you. That was very nice. It was my pleasure to do this.
Hey,
The-
Bill?
Yes,
Bill? John Delamater. Just
Hi, John.
quickly, I'd like to acknowledge a person who had a big role in this fire and who passed away, and that was Tom Roberts, who was the line boss on the 5 Mile Fire. I just wanted to bring his name up.
oh, thank you. Where did he live?
Well, Tom lived at the time, I think, in Brule, but he's deceased now.
Tom was the rural ranger at that time, and Bill, when you and I were working, and Jeff too, his daughter was one of the people that helped us.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think we'll turn this back over to John Grossman. And before I do that, Bill, you mentioned your book. I put up a slide with your book. You want to talk about how much and how they can order it?
Okay. Yes, it's $20 if you email me or text me or call me, because I have to mail it. Otherwise, it's $15. But you can order it from Amazon or the Wisconsin Historical Society. And my address is, I can't see it on my screen, but
It's on the screen, Bill.
all right. P.O. Box 5, Wascott 54890. Thank you.
And with that, are we ready to close, Don?
Take it away, John. Thank you much, Bill.
Thank you.
Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed this evening's presentation. Please be aware that tomorrow you will receive an email inviting you to complete a survey on your webinar experience. Please take time to complete and return. Your advice is critically important to us in our efforts to serve you. We believe that all that life really is connected over the miles and years. Your advice establishes that connection between us and is the basis for our growth and improvement over time. And finally, make note that this presentation is being recorded and will be posted at our website for future viewing. The recording and associated book will be promoted within Wisconsin K-12 school systems in the years ahead to help connect school children to the story of their history on this forested landscape. If not already a member of Forest History Association of Wisconsin, perhaps you'll consider joining us in continuing the dialogue on how we learn from the past to build a better future. Thank you and good night.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Bill, again.
Okay. It was a pleasure. Good to see everybody again.